Hello everyone and welcome back. This is going to be just a short video. I want to fix a mistake that I have spotted. I thank God it's quite early-ish, so not much needs to be altered, and also I would like to address, rather discuss some issues that have come up or been mentioned in the previous parts, and I feel I should have told more about them. Okay, let's start with the mistake. The mistake considers the resolution of this attack. I had to process 3 hits, and I just forgot about the third one, and so I got it while watching the previous video, and now it's the time to fix it. So in effect, what we have to do is assign another hit to this unit over here. So it was 3 hits. The first one it was the IP. The second one we retreated 1 hex, but that also resulted in the unit losing a step, and now there is still 1 more hit to satisfy. So it's either elimination, I don't want to do that of course, or I have the option to retreat another hex and disperse the unit, and of course that's what I'm going to do. So it's going to be a 2 hex retreat, and I think the best place for this unit to retreat in order to have a slim but you never know chance of survival is to retreat here into these woods and stuck with the other corpse house unit. So let's do this. And it has to be dispersed, of course. Let's place the disperser market, and now we've satisfied 3 hits. I'll just put it right below and this one on top, so as not to mix which unit is the dispersed one. Of course, downside of it is that if this stack gets attacked in and it will be rather sooner, I'm afraid sooner rather than later, it will only be able to retreat 1 hex because this unit is dispersed. So what we have to do now is check whether the 3 third Popov there will advance its 2nd hex. It has advanced the 1st hex, and then now let's see if we'll advance a 2nd one. It's mechanized, it's not space, and it can. So let's go back to our priority tables concerning advances. So it's the first situation, it's primary direction. Yes, it is along its primary direction. So you can see the arrow here. So 0 units and the hex over there, and it will be an auto advance. So yeah, that's where this unit goes. So yeah, and I think this has fixed the mistake, hopefully. And I mean, if you spot any other mistake, just let me know about it. So let's go to the second point I would like to discuss with you, and it concerns this unit, which is underneath now. Okay, that's a mess. Okay, let me fix things a little bit. Yeah, that's better. So this is a first guards unit, and there is a rule concerning the placement of objectives. First Guard Army is one of the two formations, the other being the 40th Army, that has got an army objective. We have already seen and discussed placement of front objectives. This is a front objective, but there are also two army objectives, providing more specific, let's say, instructions for units and these armies. And this unit was activated, and we didn't check about the placement of the army objective, and I think I've got this right, and that's why, because the first guard was not activated as an army. It just happened a first guard unit to be stacked with a mobile group Popov units, and that's how it got to be activated and move and attack. So I think the rules say that it is about activating the army, the 40th, or in this case the first guards army, and the rules tend to be, quite clear, and they tend to be more literally implemented than not. So I think that if the rules are required for the army objective to be placed, they would have been worded something like units of the army or stuff like that, not just the whole army. So I think I've got this right. I would love to get some opinions about it, but I think we shouldn't place the first guards army objective right now. So next issue that I think I would love to discuss, it concerns this unit over here. It seems that this unit got itself voluntarily surrounded by advancing into this hex. So this unit now is this hex is enemy controlled, this hex is enemy controlled, and of course this hex is enemy controlled. So it's surrounded, and many would wonder how can it be? Is it okay? I mean, let me remind you that dispersed units in enemy action Kharkov still retain their zones of control, in contrast to enemy action Ardennes, where they didn't. But dispersed units have a zone of control in this game. So, what's the case here? I've looked a little bit through the rules, and I found some the most relevant situation. I mean, there is nothing that's prohibiting Soviet unit to get itself surrounded, and I mean, in the first place, nothing in the movement methods or advance. There is a restriction, and it's in 9.23 restrictions on Soviet movement. Advance is a kind of movement, and the fourth case G says that it shouldn't move if it would become unable to trace supply. And that's the case here, because if you're surrounded in the next supply phase, or I think you can't, this unit wouldn't be able to trace supply. I mean, you can't, the map heads, these are the map heads from which it can trace supply, and it can't go through here or here or here, so it's surrounded. But this rule comes into play on turn 4 onwards. So I suppose because the Soviets are staging a major attack and they're trying to gain as much ground as fast as possible, they don't actually care about, you know, becoming surrounded or becoming out of supply during the first few turns of the game. So in the absence of any rule saying otherwise, I'm gonna leave that unit there. Also, another thing that I should have mentioned when resolving attacks is the combat tactics, whether we draw combat tactics and or not. I mean, normally you get to draw, you have to draw a card for the Soviets and apply any other combat tactics. There is an exception, of course, and this exception is when the Soviets are doing an overwhelming attack. And what does that mean? You can find the relevant rule, and it's 1238. An attack is overwhelming when it's 8-1 or greater, 6-1, and the large attack, meaning that 7 or more chits are going to be drawn, or all defending units are supplied and dispersed, and it's greater than 5-1, or all defending units are isolated in and not in VP hex. If you watch the previous part with the attacks, none of these situations arose, so we proceeded and drew the combat tactics, and we were right to do so. But it's in the heat of the battle, it can be easily forgotten, so keep in mind to spot any overwhelming attacks before drawing your cards. So another term that has come up a lot during chit draws and stuff like that is the issue of Soviet support. You remember that it's saying Soviet support or determining attack eligibility that we were discussing support, and as I've mentioned, support they were in support. Everything was in support, and I feel I should have said a little bit more about support. So let's do it now. Support is covered by rule 13.5. It's about Soviet support, but this will be in effect on turn 5 and onwards. It's actually in bold, instead in bold in the rules. It says clearly that prior to game turn 5, all hexes are in Soviet support. So everything is supported, and when the time comes, the support and what support that would be, and which hexes would be in support, is actually determined by the level of Soviet victory points. And there's the rules for determining which support line on the map you will use. But I don't think we should say any more about this right now. We will get back to it, of course, on turn 5, provided we haven't suffered any catastrophic loss by then, and then we will see how these things are resolved. And just for wrapping this up, we have done everything with that card, and I mean, what I have forgotten to say is that typically you would check for any units that have not moved or attacked if they would get an IP and improved position. I think all units have moved and checked, but for the Soviets, we don't check for improved positions prior to turn 4, so that wouldn't apply, but just mentioning it that after everything else is done, movement, activation, movement, attacks, any units should get an IP. So now we discard the card and we're ready for German impulse. Another point is if we hadn't used, let me remind you that this was there was another auxiliary card, but okay, it's the same. If we hadn't used the auxiliary card, because in order to use it you have to have a combat in which the tactic would apply, and it would be used this way. But if we hadn't done this, then what happens is that the auxiliary card becomes the command card, and that's exactly what you think it is. The Soviet solar system can get 2 activations in one impulse, and this from my previous experience can and will be quite deadly, and that's why you have to be extra careful when making your plans as a defender here, because the attacker can attack suddenly and can attack a lot more than you think it can, so you have to be careful. But that's not the case. We have already used the auxiliary card, so now it's time for our impulse, the German impulse, and I think this concludes this video, and okay, I'll see you in the next part.